I've partnered with Dr. Mike Roussell of Substance Nutrition to bring you guys the ultimate gains blend. We've got his Neuroc Coffee, which supports learning and memory, a special custom bold and dark blend, kind of an espresso roast feel. And then we have Synthesis, his amazing muscle recovery and growth optimizing protein powder, 30 grams per scoop. It's the perfect anytime protein with fast and slow blend. It's a mix of whey and casein, a nice smooth, all natural vanilla formula. You can have it with just water, add it to your protein shake. I love this combination. We've got brain health and focus. We've got supportive protein supplementation to maximize your gains and recovery in the gym. The combination of these two for a limited time offer, you know the price is right, only 69 bucks. Of course, that's the price we chose. Get this now while supplies last. These are hand batched, individually created, and only for you guys. So jump on it right now, and I think you'll really enjoy this. Peace. Yo, BJ GADDOUR with the BJ GADDOUR podcast. And look, I'm shaking. I'm so excited today because we've got a legend in the game, Dr. Mike Roussell, a nutrition expert, a lifting junkie. This guy, you might recognize him as the guy who contributed the chapter to my Your Body's Your Barbell book. He did the diet chapter. We also worked together on the MetaShred program. I did the workout DVD. He did the diet. He created his own book, the MetaShred Diet, which we talked about before. So he is a returning champion, but a lot has changed. We haven't actually had we touched base and caught up recently for the first time in a long time since the pandemic. A lot has changed. Let me tell you what we're going to talk about today. Number one, we'll do a brief catch up. We'll talk about what's going on, in the nutrition, weight loss space since the pandemic. We're going to discuss, something that's bothering Dr. Mike, lately, like the concept of if everything works, then what does it really mean to have individuality in your training, nutrition, etc. He's going to give his thoughts on Ozempic. Is it the end of weight loss as we know it for the health and fitness practitioner? Just give someone a pill. It's easy. It works. It seems to work really, really well. People are more short-term than long-term anyway, so if it has long-term effects, do they even really care? People are just trying to live. People are living in the now, I think, more than ever since the pandemic. So we'll get his thoughts on that. And then we'll do some rapid-fire stuff in terms of, what I think a lot of us struggle with right now in the grocery store. What type of egg should we get? What type of chicken, beef, fish? Steel-cut oats, or can we just go instant with the good, beautiful Quaker guy with this beautiful, one of the classiest bitches in the game, I think, is the Quaker guy and the Quaker oats. Just so classy. We're going to talk about protein, how much, what type, powders. We'll finish off with coffee, something I've obviously had too much of this morning. Okay. But it fires me up, and there's a special offer towards the end. You're going to watch all the way till the end. Dr. Mike and I have been working on something special behind the scenes. Here's a quick hint. It's a combination of the best protein powder in the game and the best coffee in the game. We combine them into an incredible special offer for our listeners today. So stay tuned for that. Before I get into it, just a couple of housekeeping issues. Free 7-day trial to thedailybj.com, where you can access all of my content over the past decade, past and present, ad-free. You get first access to all new stuff and exclusive access to everything. Free 7-day trial, cancel anytime, only 25 bucks a month, less than $1 a day. Okay. It's a business, people. We love your support. It allows us to really keep making the content in an amazing way. Obviously, a lot of it's free on YouTube. You're only getting a little bit on YouTube, and it has ads all over it. So we'd love your support. All my gear, sleevessoseparately.com, hoodies, tank tops, joggers, you name it. Go to sleevessoseparately.com. We manufacture in downtown LA. All my gear. You'll really love it there. And that is it for right now. Let's bring in Dr. Mike. How we doing, man?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here, catch up with you, and be on the show.
Well, it's a pleasure, man. We're going to do a 45-minute kind of tight rapid fire. You're in between appointments right now, so I really appreciate your time. What has changed for you as a practitioner, how you work with people, your overall views since the pandemic? A lot has shifted in the industry. Obviously, we've got the rise of things like Ozempic, and there also has never been more information available, which I think has created an incredible amount of confusion as people go into their own camps, and people are consuming, in my opinion, way too much information. So, how do you navigate this new world?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult, actually, partly because there's so much information. And I think that one of the good sides is there's so much scientific information that's available, but the downside of that is there's a lot of people who don't necessarily understand science sharing and talking about that information. And not to sound like a grumpy old scientist, but like I was in school till I was almost 30 and spent so much of that time understanding how to read and assimilate the structure of a scientific research paper. Like, what does it mean? What does it not mean? And those nuances are lost in 90-second Instagram reels or even articles written by your favorite, publication. And because the publication business in itself has changed, where it's a volume business, it's not a quality business. And when you go volume and not quality, you miss the nuances. And I think one of the big things that's happened is this idea that's gaining a lot of groundswell, in that it doesn't really matter what you do, like everything works. You could do fasting, you do not fasting, you do high carb, you do low carb, you could eat high saturated fat, low saturated fat, the RDA for protein, not the like, it doesn't matter, like everything works. And I think that's a bad message, because in reality, I don't think everything works for everybody. And one of the things I always think back on when I ran the study that I ran when I was a graduate student, we were looking at the addition of beef to a heart healthy diet and how it impacted cholesterol levels. And then also how we added more protein to someone's diet and how that impacted cholesterol and blood pressure levels. And, what we found was, whether you were eating beef on a daily basis or whether you're eating chicken and fish on a daily basis, your cholesterol levels lowered the same. But when you looked at the individual data, some people's cholesterol increased and some people's cholesterol decreased more. And so while the average reduction was the same, if you look at that individual variability, it was different. And if you look at a lot of these larger studies, Gardner's a researcher who does a lot of these big long-term weight loss studies, and will compare, he did one called the A to Z study, where they compared high carb, low carb, moderate, and kind of a zone diet. And they basically, they found similar results across all of them. He did another one that was low carb versus high carb, long-term weight loss and maintenance. And they basically the same, conclusion was that both diets had similar results. But if you looked at the actual individual data points, some people lost a lot of weight on one dietary approach, and some people lost a lot of weight on the other. And so that doesn't mean that both work. It means that different things work for different people. And that is the important message that I think is missing out there, is it's not just do anything and it works. It's you have a lot of options and you got to figure out what works best for you. And you kind of get this foundation of nutrition, and then you can start playing with it to really achieve the results that you want, the best and the fastest. And so you can have that body and the life that you want.
It's almost like a caveat needs to be added. Everything works until it doesn't. That's the other piece of it too, is you can't do the same diet or exercise program indefinitely. Not that it's going to hurt you, but obviously we know that results will slow, you'll hit plateaus, and ultimately the timing of everything is important, right? Like I still believe from my personal experience that in terms of short-term weight loss, nothing beats a lower carbohydrate approach, but very few people can stay on a low-carb diet long-term, and/or they have to cycle things and, work in a lot of flexibility. But at the same time, as a 41-year-old, my body is different than it was when I first got into this, when I had more body fat, and I saw a lot of issues with food that I was working on in terms of like emotional eating, stuff like that. So for me today, the diet that worked for me back when I was in my early 20s or when I first kind of lost a lot of weight is not what I use today, because it doesn't serve me with my needs, the changes in my taste, behaviors, exercise approach, the stress from work, my age itself. It's actually funny, I kind of need more carbohydrates than I used to feel good. So that's the other piece of it too, guys. Like, and that's why I think we also kind of are in this acceptance journey with everything. Like everything's okay. No one wants to have tough conversations, or we've gotten very soft because, again, you can take a pill now. Ozempic, we'll touch on in a second. It's going to fix everything in terms of weight loss. Like, honestly, like, why would you take Ozempic? Why would you do a hard exercise and structured disciplined diet program when a pill can eliminate your appetite and get you fast results in the short term where we're all living right now, because we just had this like end of the world pandemic that has really changed our perspectives in a lot of ways.
You know what I think is the other thing? I mean, there's a parallel in strength and conditioning right now when you look at some of these meta-analysis that are coming out and saying, hey, if you want to gain muscle, if you want hypertrophy, you can actually do it anywhere between 6 reps and 20 reps, right? And I think to the average person who's like, okay, I want to get bigger, and then you hear, well, you can do it between 6 and 20 reps, it's more confusing than anything else. You know, and so I think there's a similar parallel happening in strength and conditioning as there is in diet. And, you know, on the diet front, people are very quick to say like, oh, it doesn't matter as long as you manage your calories and as long as you eat your protein. But, you know, as long as you manage your calories is like a nuclear bomb of a statement, because there's so many factors that go into what drives someone to eat and what impacts, you know, their food choices on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's really where we need to spend more of our time. I mean, if it was always as simple as just controlling calories, like we wouldn't have any of the problems we're in. But humans eat for a lot of reasons other than calories. You know, there's research to show they took infants and they basically can adjust the calories of the formula they're giving infants, but the volume stays the same. So it's like we're giving the infant 20 mils, but the amount of calories in that 20 mils is different. And an infant will stop eating once they've had enough calories. An adult or even a teenager or someone, an adolescent, doesn't work. We lose that ability to sense calories. We eat based on weight. We eat based on volume of food, which has nothing to do with calories. So to say to someone, all you need to do is manage calories, I think is really difficult because the human body doesn't regulate the food they eat based on calories. They regulate it based on volume and weight. So for me, it has just this idea of everything works is interesting, but I think it's actually made it harder for a lot of people to get where they want to go.
I love that. And again, I think in a lot of ways too, the simplification, people need things to be simplified more than ever because of everything that's out there. And again, you know, this is a business. This is a profit-based industry, right? And we have to differentiate between him and her and that and this. And in some ways, in doing so, like you said, you know, you can you can gain muscle in all rep ranges for sure. But, you know, at the same time too, if I had like $1 million on the line and I had 6 to 12 weeks, you know, there would be a very specific approach I'd be using for that. And I'd also probably not be as concerned about things like my joints, right? Again, so deadlines matter. All these things matter. Yeah. It has to be a case-by-case situation. And then audience, right? If I got people at home with a band and a pair of 10 to 25 pound dumbbells, well, heavy weight training is out.
Yeah.
We can do progressive body weight stuff, but that takes a lot of time and practice. So again, what we're getting at here is you've got to use a fine-tooth comb. I also think it's important to, you know, adhere to fewer experts. And ultimately, again, you know, if you're going to do this for a long time, you have to be willing to try a bunch of different things as well. That's the other piece of it too is, I credit my success in this to that. Like I have taken ownership of the process all the way. Like I don't go to other people for questions. I do a little research and then I try and I keep trying and fine tuning. So I think that's important too. But, you know, we were talking before we started recording, like, you know, AI is going to really impact like streaming itself, kind of peaked in 2022. And you're seeing all these like Paramount is about to go under. The situation was $5 billion last year. It's already down to $1 billion, and it's almost going to be like a fire sale. Like, this is some of the original content providers. Netflix hit their first plateau a couple years ago and is scrambling to figure out how to get things going. Now we've got AI, and AI is allowing us to cut out creators, talent, to cut costs and manage those situations right now. From a fitness standpoint, you know, you can pump into ChatGPT, and I shared this multiple times, like a BJ GADDOUR workout, Tabata style, 20 minutes. And in a second, it gets something that to the average consumer, 99.9% of people would think, oh, this is a good workout for free in 1 second, right? And then what's going to happen with all the videos that I have out there with my face, if they can replace that likeness, and then we'll have to fight for the royalties. Those will take years to get, right? From a nutrition weight loss standpoint, which is kind of where you've, you know, made your bread, so to speak. How is Ozempic and other, by the way, not just Ozempic, the competition right now to make a better drug with less side effects, more accessible, lower cost, all this stuff is going to make it even more globally accessible. Why would someone bother changing their diet, exercising, which is hard, requires discipline, when there's going to be safer, more effective medication than already that's out there with all these celebs promoting it, using it? I mean, surely there's always going to be people that are going to want to do it the hard way, the path less traveled. But what are your thoughts there?
You know, I think it's really interesting. I think that we've been looking as a society for a very long time for a weight loss drug that works and doesn't kill people, right? I'm being totally serious. Like, you know, because even started like in the 90s, you know, if we start in the 90s, like if we don't want to go back too far because like cocaine used to be a weight loss drug. But if we start kind of in the 90s, you know, when they were really trying to look at different kinds of stimulants to burn more calories, you know, that was really the approach in the 90s, was weight loss drugs that would burn more calories to, you know, to get people to lose weight. And then, you know, that didn't really work because it was this, one, it's hard to burn enough calories to make a difference, right? And two, those stimulants then had negative effects on cardiac function. So then we were like, okay, well, how do we get people to like absorb less stuff? You know, so you're going to eat something, but you're not going to absorb it. So it was like the whole Olestra and a lot of those things, right? And a lot of GI side effects that didn't work out for a lot of people as well. And so with Ozempic, it's the next angle of, okay, well, how do we just crush someone's appetite? Because if you're not hungry, then you're not going to eat. And then even if you burn the same amount of calories, like you're just consuming a lot less. Because part of the problem is we just overconsume. And, you know, that is a multifactorial problem. And I have 4 kids. So the oldest are 15 and the youngest is 8. And one of the things that we're always talking about with them is ultra processed foods. And it's not that these foods are necessarily bad, like Doritos taste delicious, but the problem is they taste so delicious, you want to eat the whole bag and you don't actually have to chew that much. Like if you've ever had a slice of pizza from like Pizza Hut or Domino's, like one, it's not like when we were kids. Right. And two, like you literally don't have to chew it. Like you could have no teeth and you could just kind of like gum it and you would digest and eat it. And that's one of the things with ultra processed foods is they're very easy to consume from a flavor perspective, but also from a mechanical digestion perspective. Whereas if you're eating carrots and beans and potatoes, like you actually have to chew that food and it takes a while to eat. And we're missing out on that. So I think, so there's this overconsumption, which has a bunch to do with our food choices, right? But with something like Ozempic, it basically just crushes your appetite. So you give yourself this subcutaneous, so it's an injection, but more like an insulin injection. It's not like a vaccine where it goes deep into your muscle. It's just going like just right into your fat, which hopefully is getting less if you're taking it, right? But it's this shallow injection, and you take it on a weekly basis, and it basically crushes your appetite. And, you know, I've seen a lot of criticisms. I think the biggest roadblock right now is it's expensive. Like it's only covered for not weight loss. It's only covered actually, I believe, for diabetes. And so you got to pay about $1,000 a month if you want to do it. And so that, you know, that takes out a lot of people to start. So there's a price issue. I think the second issue is like with anything else. And people will say like, oh, when you stop using Ozempic, you gain all the weight back. Well, it's like, well, if I was following a diet and I stopped that diet, I would gain all the weight back, right? If you're exercising and you stop exercising, like you lose muscle and you lose your level of fitness. So it's something that you need to be willing to sustain over time. And I think that there's going to be a segment of people, just like with anything, will use it to jumpstart the change that they need to make in their life. There's going to be a segment of people that are say, well, I'm just going to use this forever. Like if you have diabetes, don't pay a lot of attention to managing your blood sugar, managing your blood glucose. You're like, I'm just going to take metformin for the rest of my life, right? So I think there are a lot of people that are going to make those decisions. I think over time, people are going to figure out the dosage. You know, like, do you take it every 2 weeks? Do you take it every 3 weeks? But the problem that I see is it actually has to do with exercise and activity, because there's new data that's been coming out showing that whether you're like skinny or fat, just to use like two broad categorizations, your level of fitness plays a huge, role in your ability to stay chronic disease free and avoid early death. So if you're someone who is skinny / normal weight, but have a very low level of fitness, you're at equal or higher risk of, chronic disease and early death as someone who's overweight, but has good physical fitness. So physical fitness is really something that, and as someone who's dedicated his life to nutrition, right? Nutrition gets a lot of focus, but physical fitness gets like no focus. And you can't Ozempic your way to a good VO2 max. Like, you actually have to put in the work to get it. And so, yes, people are going to start losing weight. And even if we scale this to the masses, and it's going to work for a lot of people, and I think society would be better for it, but it's actually not the silver bullet, because we need to move more and we need to have a high level of fitness. And that's difficult. Like, I was just telling a friend, like, I got COVID recently, actually, for the first time. And my VO2 max was crushed. It would drop something like 14 points. And afterwards, and all I thought was, man, that's a lot of work, like, to get it back up, because it's just a lot of work. And so I think, and this too, there's no avoiding the hard work required to be fit and healthy. Like, I call it a strong, fit, and healthy life. And there are some tweaks, and you can make it easier. And maybe something like a drug like Ozempic could support people in a way that they weren't able to get over their appetite. Like, I get it. I have an insatiable appetite. Like, I understand. But you can't avoid the hard work. And so I truly think, yes, maybe this is going to move people in the right direction, but we're not going to avoid the hard work. There's always, like, you have to take the personal initiative to put in the work every single day. Like, we've seen it, like, the medical parallel could be statins, right? Like, tons of people take statins, and it lowers your LDL or your bad cholesterol like nobody's business. But at the same time, the American Heart Association still says, look, there are 8 separate factors. Cholesterol is only one of them that impacts your risk for cardiovascular disease. So it's like, what was seen as the magic bullet is now just a player in the room. And I really think that's what we're going to see with weight. Like, yes, being overweight does put you at risk for a lot of things. And I think that we should all build those habits so that we can live life at a healthier weight. But it's only one piece of the puzzle. And so if you get a little extra help to find that puzzle piece, there's a bunch of other ones that are still really going to need to be there. And I do think that humans crave that connection with other people, and that finding, like we were saying, finding what, like, that personal journey, like what works best for you is best done, like, with coaching and with personal guidance, either one-on-one or group or at scale. And so I don't see that part going away, because I think that is part of like what's being human, like, to not get too philosophical.
I love that. No, a couple of things to unpack there too. And what we'll do here is, as I kind of give my input, I'll kick to you, agree, disagree, and also flesh it out if you want to. The key to weight loss is ultimately appetite management. And when I look at appetite management, there's a holy trinity: protein, fiber, water. And I focus on trying to get as much of those throughout the day as possible. And that's been the foundation of what I do. Agree or disagree?
Appetite management is the key, 100%.
And do you find those 3 variables to be the most important?
Protein and fiber. For me, I don't see water as much, but I think water is a good displacement for people who drink a lot of calories. But with protein and fiber comes volume. And actually, if you think water, because the water is, when you think of foods with high volume, they have water inside of them. And that's really what drives appetite control, 100%. Love that. And again, that's the simple thing I tell people too, like, with appetite management as well. And this is what I kind of look at there's like I guess if there's a graph, right? I think short term, when it comes to weight loss, nutrition is the most important, right? You've got 28 days. The exercise doesn't really matter as long as you're doing it, to be honest, in 28 days. Yeah. So short-term nutrition, long-term, I've always said this, it's exercise, because you talk about appetite management and you talk about blood sugar management, right? It is exercise, movement, even light movement. It doesn't have to be hard movement. In fact, too much hard movement makes you too hungry. So there's actually a right blend of exercise, a mix of low and high intensity stuff you need to do
to get the right amount of management, to get your metabolic rate up, all that stuff. And then I think going from like fit to shredded, then now you go back to nutrition, right? Because now you got to, there's no wiggle room, especially as you get older. So there's this kind of, you know, this kind of blend with it. And, but like you said, and I appreciate you saying that, being a nutrition guy, in that, you know, nutrition sometimes gets a little bit too much importance, because there are some things we can't change, right? We can't change what people actually enjoy eating. We can't change cultural background and foods that were part of growing up and part of your heritage. But we can change, you know, going for a walk. We can change adding 10 to 20 minutes of, you know, a band or body weight workout you can do anytime, anywhere. We can change you just adopting a recreational activity like golf or pickleball. I don't know what the hell people do these days, but, you know, something that is a little bit of fun, so it's not always miserable for you, that helps. So that's, do you agree with that statement about nutrition, short-term, exercise, long-term, and then getting into like the elite percent of whether it be performance or aesthetics, then nutrition once again steps up, being more important?
Yeah, 100%. And I've always said exercise is the best drug we have access to. Like, it truly is. Like, you were talking about insulin sensitivity and glucose management, and like one bout of exercise does so much for you from a metabolic standpoint, from a cognitive standpoint. Like, it truly is, I think, the best drug that we have access to. And I also agree with you that long-term success, exercise has to be part of it. And one of the things that I just truly believe, and I know that it's not the case with everyone, but I feel like it's the case with most people, is you can't decouple nutrition and exercise. Like, some people will try to say that they're not related. And I just have seen so many people, if you're committed to your nutrition plan and you're committed to exercise, there's kind of this deal that's made between the two. Like, you don't want to managing your appetite's not fun, right? It's much more fun to just eat whatever you want. But if you know, you're like, well, I'm going to go put in all this hard work from an exercise perspective, right? I want to reap those. I want to reap the results. I want these two things to work together. And if you go out and you train hard and you want to recover and you want to reap those benefits of the hard training, nutrition has to be there too. And at a core level, people don't like to waste time. And that's why I don't think you can decouple nutrition and exercise. So you have to have exercise there for the long term. And I also agree with you. Like, if you want to take it then really to the next level and get really lean, likely something that's maybe outside of just your personal normal genetic profile, it's math and it's dedication. And so you really do need to dial both things in, exercise and nutrition, because the margin of error there is so small. You know, whereas starting out for a lot of people, you know, whether this meal has 500 calories or 600 calories doesn't really matter, because it doesn't have 1,200 calories, right? And so you've made that change. But as you get progressive and you get leaner, the difference between 500 and 600 calories in a meal actually does make a difference when you're trying to get really, really lean. Yeah.
And in the beginning, like, if you're eating a loaf of bread a day and having 5 regular sodas, adopting more water, or just going water only, or just calorie-free beverages and just cutting out the bread will have, and this is mind-blowing to people, will have way more impact than running a marathon every day.
Right. Yeah, you're done. Like, don't do anything else. Like, just do those two things.
Okay, a marathon every day can't compete with cutting out a loaf of bread and, you know, 3 to 5 glasses or sodas or juices, whatever that is. And that is where it kind of gets mystical in people's minds, because they can't understand how, like, I ran a marathon. Why can't I eat whatever I want? And like you said too, once you get to the point, like, the sweet spot is, and this is not like mind-blowing, but when you look at it as energy, and you look at it as fuel, and you look at it as supporting your activities, your ability to be productive at work, that's when the real shift happens. And not looking to over-exercise to offset it, but actually, like, when on higher calorie days, in the past, I used to, like, starve myself low carb, and then I do the cheat meals, and then I would be resting. And it's kind of so ass backwards, because on a lower energy day, I shouldn't be doing this tough stuff. And then when I get more energy, I should be doing more, because you feel it. Why would you want to sit on it and not digest it and just basically store it? And just, so, you know, again, this is the topic for another show. We got more to cover here, but you know, it really is, you've got to find a way to not hate movement. And that's between you and your Lord and Savior. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't help, you can't help him with that. I can't help him with that. And if you have such a negative association towards movement and sweat and that type of thing, and maybe a little physical discomfort, then there is no pill that's going to get you away from that, you know, kind of come to, you know, who movement moment. So let's shift gears. I want to go rapid fire. You know, I want to go to like people at the grocery store. Food's never been more expensive. Healthy food has never been more expensive.
Right.
So, you know, I'm at a personal point where I'm not, I kind of went initially, like, I'm just going to start getting anything at Costco now. I know it's going to be less quality stuff, but I can get more for less. But now I'm kind of back to this point. You know what? I'm just going to eat a lot less and make sure everything that comes through.
Fasting has never looked so good. Said fasting has never been so good.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like, so you're going to give me the incentive to eat less. Thank you. I've been waiting. Again, that's the mindset piece of this as well. Like, my diet is so simplified now to the point where, you know, it's either a midday shake or protes with oatmeal with protein and berries. And then at the end of the day, it's this awesome chili I make on Sundays that I have through the rest of the week that has bone marrow broth, pasture-raised beef, you know, all these vegetables. Again, like the fiber, the protein, the food volume. It's all done the whole week. All dinners are done. And then, you know, on Friday, Saturday, that's when maybe I'll make something or we'll have fun, whatever. But that's, I think it's interesting too. In the journey is like, you go through this phase, you need something simple on one page, easy to do. And then you want to add variety. And then ultimately you come back to, you know what? And this is an age thing too. I got so much work to do. I know you know what I'm talking about. Like, I don't have time to think about it. And you know what? It always works. And maybe I'll mix it up with a chicken soup one week or something, right? But like a shake and a soup, stew, chili, like that combination, and maybe mix in a salad, right? It's just so easy. It's so simple. But let's go into like a rapid fire of, like, you know, people watch You Are What You Eat, and you see like, oh, cage-free really doesn't mean much. And, you know, what does it mean to be free roaming and all this stuff? So let's talk eggs. What are the best types of eggs to get? And like, what really matters when you're looking at like those marketing terms that really are used to just justify charging you a lot more than maybe you need to?
Yeah.
But then, like, you go to a farmer's market and I get these blue heirloom eggs, and you look at how thick and big and yellow those yolks are. I'm like, no, this is not like Eggland's omega-3 best egg. That could be cage-free or even organic. Like, this is a totally different egg. Like, talk to us about eggs. Maybe the single most nutritious, cost-effective, nutritious source on the planet, if we're being honest about it. Still, even though they've gone up in price.
Yeah, no, I love eggs. I've always been a huge fan of eggs. You know, I mean, egg protein was considered, and maybe still is considered, the gold standard protein that all other proteins are compared against. You know, yeah, I think eggs are great. I personally look for omega-3 eggs. You know, I think if you get like pasture, I think you're right. It's like cage-free, pasture-raised. Like, whenever you start seeing the marketing terms on food products, like, you know, somebody's gaming the system. And so for a while, cage-free did mean something, but now it's become what's the definition of is. And so you might see cage-free, and in your mind, you envision what that's like, but that's probably not what it is. So I usually the standard egg we buy is an omega-3 egg, because it's going to have some additional short chain omega-3 fatty acids in the feed. And so that enriches in the yolk. That's kind of what we get. And I think that's easy for most people. If you can go, I agree. I mean, you know, farmers market style eggs are amazing. You know, these eggs that are really grown from, you know, come from chickens who are in a true free range environment. The quality and the cost of their feed is going to be a lot more. I grew up in Vermont. My parents are still up there, and we get amazing, you know, when we go up to visit them, like, it's a whole different kind of egg. But I appreciate that that's not, you know, it's not something that everybody can do, but I think you should always try to look for that omega-3 egg, because I find that the overall quality and nutrition of that product is going to be the best bang for your buck.
Love that. Chicken. I mean, obviously it's the chicken or the egg. It's the similar concept, but you know, there's natural, there's organic, and again, cage-free is always interesting, because you can have, you know, a chicken can not necessarily be in a cage, but they can be caged by other chickens.
Right. Yeah.
To these factory style farms. So what are you looking for when you're getting chicken?
So chicken, I think you could look at it as either like conventional chicken or organic chicken. For me, it's generally a cost issue. Like, you know, we've talked about food costs. It's just a reality of it. But even when you look at conventional chickens, if you're to buy, say, chicken from like the regular section of the grocery store, actually one of the things that I look for, especially if you're buying chicken breasts, is the size of the chicken breast. Sometimes you'll go to a store and, you know, it was Sam's Club. I remember this specifically. The chicken breasts at Sam's Club were enormous, like ungodly big. You're like, how could this chicken have walked around? Like they were so big. And for me, I just find that to be a red flag of, you know, how have we I feel like we've naturally selected these chickens too far. And so it sounds weird, but I like a regular sized chicken breast. And, you know, that really is for me something, you know, chicken is such a basic staple of a lean protein. And so we go, you know, yes, if you can go farmer's market, I love it, but it's not available for everybody. Organic, also good. But I also don't think you should feel bad if you're buying conventional chicken at the grocery store. Just don't buy the mega chicken breasts. And I would say that's generally, you know, with 6 people in my house, like our food bill's through the roof. And so we generally buy that conventional chicken.
So you're telling me that if them titties too big, it's too good to be true.
Yes. Yes.
So those are moderately sized titties.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing too is I love, like, if I had to pick my favorite, it's chicken thighs.
I love chicken thighs too.
It's like a little bit darker. It's got the flavor of the skin, less expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Than those big ass titties you were just talking about. So, you know, that's something to consider as well.
I mean, also, because you're probably like me, like you're probably chicken breasted out. Like you can eat a couple chicken breasts a day, every day for, you know, 20 years. And at some point you're like, I need something different. So I will definitely mix it up. Sometimes we'll do, you know, more chicken thighs. Sometimes we'll do more chicken breasts. Chicken breasts are good, I think, too, because they're so lean that it gives you a little bit more freedom of what else you want to add to a dish. You know, if you want to go with, you know, some more oils, if you want to add avocado, like add these other things, like you can add more higher fat foods while still controlling the overall calories in a meal is part of the nice things I think about the versatility of chicken breasts.
Yeah, you know, and again, sometimes your food habits like mimic your love life. I like breasts, but I love ass and thigh. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I go about my chicken. But I also like to go to the farmer's market as well. Because again, like I got a bunch of chicken thighs, and again, I'm okay with paying more because, you know, ultimately, what I did realize in kind of an overview of things, I was eating too much protein. I don't need 100 grams of protein at a meal. We'll talk about protein coming up next. So, you know, that's part of it too. I've got to find other ways to fill myself up and, you know, more fiber, more other food volume options. This is the most controversial because of the overall cost to not only the environment, but to your wallet. And, you know, what it's meant to the, you know, the future of the world. Beef. You know, what does it mean? You know, like when you see these other terms or options, and ultimately, you know, what do you tell people when selecting beef? Like, how do you approach it in your home? Obviously, I appreciate the honesty too. Like, you got 6 people in the house, you have to start looking at like, okay, there's optimal and there's effective, and there's also there's idealist versus realistic. So take us through that with beef.
Yeah, so I'll give you the long answer on beef because I've actually spent a large part of my career working in nutrition and beef in the nutrition and beef industry. So I know a lot of people, like I know a lot of ranchers. I understand the whole process, and it's you know, it's a confusing situation. So basically, what you're normally going to get is, you know, grass finished or grain finished. You know, grass finished is often called grass fed, but really what happens is there's a couple different stages of life cycle of cattle. And it's like towards the end of their life, are they getting, you know, bigger based on corn and grain, or are they going to eat exclusively grass? Because every cow eats corn and grain at some point in their life. Like it's like when you have a 15-year-old son, like at some point you got to be like, dude, just have some crackers because you've eaten everything else in the house, right? So, you know, that's the piece. Is it grass finished or is it grain finished? And, nutritionally, research has shown there's not that big of a difference between the two. There's a slight difference in the fatty acids, but if you're looking to get more omega-3s in your diet, like beef is not the place to go. Like there's much better places. The other piece on the beef side to think about is like local, like we've talked a lot about farmers markets. And, that's like a really interesting situation because it really depends on the geography. And because there are places in the US where you just can't raise a cow the whole year round from a calf all the way to an adult. Like there's not enough grass, the temperatures are all screwed up. And that's part of why the reasons, cattle will move around during the course of their life, like to the Midwest, where they can get more food and things like that. And the weather's a little better. So here in New York, like if you want to run what they call a cow to calf operation, where you're going to raise it from a calf all the way up, have it slaughtered, and then sell the meat. A lot of people don't have the land to be able to support the insatiable appetite of these animals as they grow. So those operations are always going to be a lot smaller, those farmers markets. And I've talked with a lot of those, those ranchers too over the years, and they feel fortunate to be able to set up those situations. But if we're talking about feeding everybody, like that model doesn't work. Like we just couldn't do it on that model. And the other thing that I think was also really interesting is there was a couple ranchers I talked to. It was down in Texas a couple of years ago, and they sold antibiotic-free, free-range, grass-finished cows, right? They did the whole thing. It was Texas. They had all kinds of land. They did it. But they actually stopped advertising their beef in that way because they felt like it was unfair to other ranchers because it positioned their product as superior when they truly didn't think it was. Because what happens sometimes with the antibiotic free is if an animal gets sick, it needs antibiotics, they'll actually just like ship it off somewhere else. And like it'll get antibiotics, but then it can't fit in the antibiotic free bucket anymore. So it'll go to a different ranch. And, because sometimes like you just need medication. And so that it's like really confusing, all these different pieces. But at the end of the day, I think beef is a great protein. I think it's something that unfortunately has gotten a lot more expensive. And as a result, I think has come off a lot of people's plates just due to price. I think all beef is generally great beef, whether it's conventional, organic, or if you get it local. I think if you get it local and you can get it from somebody who's doing the whole process, like you're truly supporting their livelihood because, it takes a lot of work and effort to do that. But there's a lot of ranchers that live in between, for conventional beef, and they pour their whole heart and their whole family into raising a good product. And so I think that's also, a really good food product too. And that's generally the one that we eat.
And biggest bang for your buck, grass-fed ground beef, right? I mean, like the versatility, getting it in bulk, being able to freeze some, like I just don't think there's a better value in terms of what it can give to a body that is also very physically active, right? It has all these B vitamins, iron, stuff you need to build with testosterone high. I mean, you can't overlook that.
Like eggs, chicken breast, and ground beef. That's like the holy trinity of whole food proteins. From a cost and benefit and nutrient perspective, it's unbelievable.
It's like the squats, push-ups, and pull-ups.
100%
of the diet world. Not too much time on this because we got to get into protein and coffee with the little time we have left. Fish. Obviously, they kind of fooled us a bit. Oh, this is farm raised and it's all this, but ultimately the farm raised stuff, because especially fattier fish, right? They hold toxins. So yeah, you're getting all this, you think fatty fish, good stuff, but no, there's actually more omega-6. It's got all these toxins stored into it. What's your big takeaway on fish? I know it might depend on the type of fish, but it does seem like, wild caught is the best practice right now when you can.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing with fish is trying to get people to eat it consistently. And I know it depends like where you live in the US and different things, but for the average person, it's like you're either a fish eater or you're not. You know, there's rarely a lot of in between. I definitely like the wild caught line caught fish the most. Salmon, like wild caught salmon, is going to be what I'll eat the most from a fish perspective. It is, you know, I remember I had a client who was he was a high up executive, like tech executive, and we were talking about fish, and he's like, "Well, no, I refuse to eat that." I'm like, "Well, what about this wild caught?" He goes, "Nope." He's like, I know too many people and I know too many secrets. And so he goes, if it's not like wild caught from this region, I'm not eating it. And, you know, I think fish is really tricky. Getting your omega-3s, those long chain omega-3s is really important. So if you're not a fish eater, then you need to make sure you supplement with the omega-3s. It's super important.
Yeah, a couple of things to add to that as well. I'm a huge fan of organic flaxseed or chia seed, because you can get all those omegas and again, all that fiber. The chia seed I put into my midday shake gives me 15 grams of fiber.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm a chia seed nut, flax, chia, and I've recently added wheat bran because I'm old. That every morning, you can't beat it. You can't beat it.
So the one thing I'll add before we're going to close out with protein powder, best practice, and coffee. I recently got this. It's called an ancestral blend. So when I get my ground beef, and I'll get some regular grass-fed ground beef from the farmer's market, and also this has the grass-fed ground beef and also the heart and the liver. And then I combine that with I get the bone marrow that I actually make into a beef broth. I mean, like, dude, this is like, you look at the benefits of heart and liver. And again, the issue is the taste and seeing it. But when you blend it up and you put it into a stew, you don't taste any of that gaminess.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on adding kind of those essential organs, you know, that used to be a big part of our diet? And by the way, I also make a spice-free blend of that for my dog too, to kind of supplement into the kibble. And she's loving it. She literally sticks her foot in the bowl.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, you know, I think you hit on it. I think organ meats come with a lot of nutrients, but also with a flavor that turns a lot of people off. And so I think it falls under that category of, it's a nutrient-rich food that if you like it, you should eat it. But if you don't, there are other ways to still get those nutrients. But the way that you just talked about, I think, is the best way to do it. You know, I think if you could mix it up with other meats in a way, like a stew, like I'm a huge fan of stews as well. That's my go-to on a daily basis throughout the week.
What do you think about me naming my chili blend BJ's Big Boner Chili?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Let's talk this awesome protein powder that you personally formulated.
Yep. Yeah.
Synthesis. And we got 5 minutes. We have to go a little bit over here. We're going to try to get you out as fast as possible. We want to talk about your special protein blend and also this coffee blend, and we have an ability to get both of these to you guys.
Right. Hey. So I got them here too, and we got the special. I don't know if we want to talk about the special GORILLACORN blend, but you know, this synthesis protein is actually something that I worked on back. You were talking about the MetaShred diet back when I was working with the publication of that book to have a protein powder that would release with the book. And we came up with it. I went and I got a certified master chef. There's like less than 100 of them in the world to help me with the flavoring behind it. It's a mix of two of the best proteins from a powder perspective you can find: whey protein isolate, and then also micellular casein. So it's kind of this hard charging quality amino acid to stimulate muscle growth and repair in the whey protein isolate. And then it has this slower digesting amino acid profile that's better for helping slow muscle breakdown. So it's really those two things together. You get 30 grams of protein per serving, which is the amount of protein that you need to maximize, you know, muscle protein synthesis, that muscle building and recovery. And the taste is just, it's a beautiful neutralish vanilla. You know, there's no aftertaste. We don't use any artificial sweeteners. We really fine-tuned the kind of monk fruit stevia blend, and it's delicious. And I've been so happy that you like it as well.
And it's very smooth. It's got the 30 grams, which has been through research shown to be the, 30 grams of complete protein it flips that muscle protein synthesis switch. But at the same time too, I'm skeptical that 29 grams, like what happens if it's only 29? What happens?
Well, that really depends on your body size, but 29 grams are probably fine.
Okay. But yeah, so you actually, because a lot of times you get the powders and you have to do like, to get 30 grams, it's like a scoop and a half, and it throws off your ratios and stuff. Each scoop is 30 grams of, just like good love making, a little bit of fast, a little bit of slow. Mix it up. 50-50, baby. Depends on the mood, but you always want to, again, it's going to help you. I take a scoop of Synthesis right away in the morning. I kind of like that modified fast. I'm just going to give my body that 30 grams of protein with some water. I'll have my Neuroc Coffee, which we'll talk about next. And then I'll have my midday shake, and then my big, protein produce, typically chili or something like that at night, at least now in the winter. So let's talk about this coffee, which, like, again, it's designed for brain health and focus and learning and cognition. I love it, man. I put 5 tablespoons to make my French press every morning. My wife loves it. Again, it really does. Like I just told you, I'm almost out because we formulated a special blend together. It's bold and dark, the GORILLACORN roast. When I'm not having that, I don't have that same level of kick into the way I attack, because I attack work the first half of my day. I really get after it with the hopes of that I don't have to necessarily do anything in the afternoon. And if I do something in the afternoon, it's bonus. So I do like combining kind of that modified fast with caffeine, which helps with appetite management, but then giving you the energy that maybe you're not having through, a traditional breakfast.
Yeah. So what we did with Neuroc Coffee years ago, we set out to make this, wanted to make a delicious coffee, because coffee is a ritual. It's something that everybody loves. And so spent about almost a year testing different coffees, and, to talking with different roasters. Found a great roaster. It's a husband and wife started the business. They roast everything by hand. The great story from them is they got a new fancy coffee roaster that had a computer on it that was supposed to do all the roasting. And within 2 days, someone had ripped the computer off the roaster, and they're like, we're just doing this old school. So everything is done small batch by hand. And then what we do is we infuse into it the antioxidants from the whole coffee fruit. So coffee's like a cherry, and the seed is what we drink as coffee, and usually the fruit's discarded. So we partnered with this company that has a patented process around harvesting the fruit itself in the fields, preventing mold, concentrating the antioxidants down, and then we mix that back into the coffee. And that's been shown in human clinical studies to increase something called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is your body's kind of magic powder for muscle or for neuron growth and repair. When you exercise, that increases BDNF, like that muscle, the neuron growth and repair. And so that is in Neuroc Coffee. And so when you drink it, not only are you going to love the coffee, but your brain has these enhanced effects that get better and better over time. So the roast that we did together, the GORILLACORN roast, we have 100 of them to start, but it's this dark espresso roast that's drinkable. So it's not meant to be made in espresso style. It's made to be drinkable style. And that's why I love it, because I think it's like this nice finesse of drink the whole cup, but it's really a strong roast that gives you everything that you love about a nice strong roast of coffee. So it is that GORILLACORN specialty. So I really enjoyed kind of going back and forth and getting this special roast for you guys.
Yeah, you sent me 5 samples, and I lean towards this one because up until this point, this is now our household coffee.
The GORILLACORN blend is for rare beasts looking to maximize their gains and be productive as fuck all day long. The GORILLACORN blend is a custom, bold and dark espresso style roast. So if you like that full-bodied, sexy coffee to start your day, again, I'll tell you what, I take a cup of this, 2 or 3 cups, maybe. Uncle Baby Biscuits gets a lot of work done fast before noon. Synthesis is the muscle recovery and growth optimizer. Now, this is the perfect anytime protein, with 1 scoop equaling 30 grams, which is the scientifically proven formula needed to flip on that muscle protein synthesis switch. You guys will love that smooth vanilla flavor, all natural ingredients. Neuroc Coffee and Synthesis is the 1-2 punch you need to get more done during your workday and more gains in the gym.
But I do like Bustelo, which is, and we're talking espresso, like
It's also very affordable. My wife grew up on it, being Puerto Rican from New York. I also, Pete's like Major Dickinson blend. I like that as well. So like for me, this was the Bold and Dark to me is like, it's for a classic man. You know, it's for a man who's, you know, he's been through some shit. He needs a bold, dark roast he can depend upon every morning to get after it. And smooth, beautiful taste. I don't put anything in it though. Down the road, there's even possibilities of adding things like collagen, creamer to it. You know, a little sneak peek, but for right now, what can these people get today? Limited quantities available. You put together an amazing kind of 1-2 punch offer here.
Yeah, so we have this double offer right now. Like I said, we have limited run of the GORILLACORN blend, and it's a totally new Neuroc Coffee that we've never had before with you, and then also the bag of synthesis. So we put the two together as a bundle that you can get at a discounted price. And it takes us a while, like I said, because we do the roasts by hand and small batch. It takes us a bit to get more. So we have a limited of 100, and you can get them both. We'll put the link in the show notes or in the bio where you can go to get it. And we expect, you know, that it's going to move pretty quick.
And by the way, it's $69. The price is right. There could be no other price for this product.
There could be no other price.
Guys, this is an amazing deal. Check out the link in the show notes for this. You want to jump on this. I feel like this will go fast. And you will love. Go ahead, please.
I was going to say, once you start drinking it, GORILLACORN is going to become your favorite coffee. That was one of our primary missions with Neuroc Coffee, was to make it your favorite coffee, and I love this blend.
Mike, thank you so much for your time. Quickly, where can they find out more about you? We'll put that in the show notes as well. And we really appreciate you coming on. Again, I'm excited about this partnership. I look forward to helping people build muscle and build their brains at the same time with this combination.
Yeah, definitely. No, thanks for having me. I think Instagram, just instagram.com/Mike Roussell. That's a great hub to get started, and definitely go to the Substance Nutrition website, which we'll link up, the special link for this BJ bundle.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We gave you almost an hour of our time, so 1 second, just clicking that like button, it means so much to us. Okay, get these right now. Go to the link in the show notes, substancenutrition.com/BJG. This special roast is only through us, the GORILLACORN blend. And again, this is the smoothest protein option out there. The gold standard is the mix of whey and casein, minimal ingredient, all natural stuff, smooth taste. You can drink it alone with water. You can add it to your shake. I think you'll really enjoy it. More episodes coming on the pipeline. Be sure to follow Dr. Mike on Instagram. We'll get that in the show notes as well. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.
Thanks for having me, man.